Welcome to CTF Underground, a podcast to deep dive into everything CTF. My name's Alb, and hosting with me, we got Angelus, aka Kelby. How's it going, brother?
Yo, what's up, Al? Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
No problem. So, guys, I just want to quickly talk about why we're doing this, what this is going to be, the content we're going to try to bring to you guys. So, basically, with BSO not being involved in the live stream production anymore and not really having any kind of CTF content for you guys, I wanted to start a podcast. I wanted to bring you guys some content throughout each week. I know that, personally, I enjoyed watching back the videos, referencing them. Other people reference stuff to me that happened in season 1, to try to show me what could happen in season 2. And just having that stuff available was real cool. And I thought that, since we're not doing it this season, that we could start up something like this podcast to keep you guys up to date on everything. So our goals for this is we want to have a positive environment for everyone to enjoy, to listen to, whether it's your commute to work, whether you're just hanging out, waiting for an OVD to start, whatever the case may be. We're going to bring to you guys some interviews from different people in our community, some maybe old admins, people who are involved in the current, role behind the scenes. We want to bring you guys some match and player reviews each week as they unfold, and then, just different things that happen within the community. That's, the basics of this. So if you feel like you might be interested in joining our podcast or being a guest on this podcast, reach out to me on Discord. Let me know. If we have a spot available, we'll definitely get you guys involved. And, we love to get more of the community involved. You don't have to be, anyone with a big name or, super popular. We're looking to get different views, ideas. We want to hear different stories. So please definitely reach out if you're interested in being on here. So to get started, we're going to go a little bit in depth with the draft of this season, how it all unfolded. Before we get into it, though, I would like to shout out Soup. He did a magnificent job getting the website up and going and getting, I guess we'll call it an app installed on the website so that, for our enjoyment, I know Emperor streamed that. We got to see live how the teams unfolded, how the captains picked the teams, literally pick by pick. It was a snake draft. As soon as they clicked the player, we seen it. We could interact with it. We had a great showing for the live stream on Discord when Emp did it. And, it's great to see the community get involved. And, it is a lot of fun for us while we're doing it. So, hats off to the guys who streamed that. And Soup, good job on all that stuff. So, with that being said, we'll get into the lineups. We'll talk a little bit about the draft league. First up, we got Leeties, which was first picked by Captain Bonds. He had first pick in the entire draft. Kelby, take us through this team. Take us through what you think of the picks, if there was any sleeper picks, and what you think is going to happen here.
Yeah, sure. So I have to preface this with I've not talked to any of the captains or really too many of the squad members about how they feel about the strengths of their squads. These are all just my personal takes as someone that paid a lot of attention during summer when infantry was popping with, 70-plus person mixes every night for a few months. Plus being back around the past couple weeks, just watching the mixed community grow back up and seeing who's playing what, where, and how. So I've got a few takes on this, starting off with the Leeties squad captain by Bonds. You'll see here, Bonds takes Sov with the first overall pick. No shock. We kind of saw the same thing last draft with Posty taking Sov to help with leadership. Sov's been away from CTF in the recent past. He's been winning his 29th or 33rd US championship. It's hard to keep up with him, but congrats to that again. After that, he picked up Tactical, and I love this pick because I paid a lot of attention in the last draft league to Bonds and Tactical's defense. And these guys were on Metal Squad, anchoring a defense that essentially never lost. They had, I think, maybe one fluke hiccup at one of the bases, but aside from that, they lost their games to the sudden death, which we'll talk about later. But this was a surprisingly strong defense. They had different imps playing with them, where it was Flo, Big Timer, also known as Ron. They had Metal come in for some of it. But Bonds and Tactical were anchoring it. Bonds was arguably one of the top 2 most effective medics in the whole draft last league. Tactical was arguably one of the top 2 most effective D-heavies in the draft. So I love seeing them run the band back together again, stack that defense up quickly. And then he filled out a large portion of his roster with USL players. So we mentioned Tactical. Nas, who's been growing in popularity across the CTF community, a skilled fighter who's learning more and more about the intricacies of CTF. Colossal, who was a championship-winning infantry on the squad of Decker last season in Care Bears. Yosh, who's got his name going around the CTF community. He's playing offense. He's playing defense. Great communicator, learning more about the game. Pistor, I think he used to play CTF. Now he's more of a skirmisher. But yeah, just huge skirmish presence on the squad. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that, whether is Sov taking over some of the leadership, Is Sav just a member on the squad and Bonds is running things his way? We'll find out as it goes. One more key notable pickup here is ZMN. ZMN's been away a little bit. Now he's coming back into the community. He wants to play. He was such a good engineer last season. But you can see in this draft, Verb gets picked right before ZMN. You would think Verb's going to be their starting engineer. That's a heavy prediction. And then maybe ZMN plays a fighting class. Maybe he falls into utility. He's really a jack of all trades. Put him wherever you need him. He can fill it in. Good to see him back in the community and everything. As far as potential sleepers on this squad, I look at folks like Mystic Gohan, who played under Mixum squad last league. He was going from offense to defense in their swing game with Axis, who's got his own squad this season. Mystic Gohan, to me, I think that's a bit of a sleeper pick. He was really showing out in some big games last season. They had a couple upsets that people were not expecting out of that squad, so shout out to him. And Cal, K-A-L. This guy, I've played OM for them a few times the past couple weeks. He's eager to learn. We talked about Chompy 4 or 5 months ago when this was all getting going. It's someone that's open to feedback, open to criticism, open to ideas, suggestions. He's trying to implement it. There's still plenty of a mountain for him to climb, but I think he can get there.
Yeah, Cal is probably, I'm not going to lie, one of my favorite players in this draft league right now, just for that aspect. Like, I log in early. Me and Frank will do like gladiator fights and stuff, and Cal is always there. And like you said, he's like PMing me, hey man, do you think you see anything I could do different? If you see me in a mix or an OVD and I do something wrong, can you let me know? Because I don't want to be doing that. I want to get better. He's putting in the reps, man. He's in that gladiator fighting with us. He's dueling, trying to get his AR down. So like I'm saying, he's probably one of my favorite players right now in the league. And like you said, he reminds me of like the mentality of Chompy. So hopefully he puts the reps in and he keeps it going, and can build his skill level up. And who knows? He's 13 this one, could be 7 the next one if he does that. And one other thing I want to say too is tactical as a second pick. I like it. I don't think he'd be remaining if Bonds didn't pick him up second. I don't think he'd be there on the way back. So hats off to Bonds for like recognizing that and picking up tactical, and having him and Bonds on a defense pretty strong, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's one of the strongest communicating squads we'll see in this. We talk about Discord comms throughout matches and mixes and stuff. I played a lot of mixes throughout summer, the past 4 months or whatever the case, and I played a lot with tactical and against tactical. The guy is solid. He'll make the proper calls, just like Bonds. They'll call home in time. They'll swing in time. It's a really strong squad, and with Sav being kind of the reigning #1 overall player back-to-back drafts, it's a really well-rounded squad with a lot of potential. I don't want to call my shot on Cal as much like I did Chompy. I'm biased to Chompy. I think Cal's got the potential. I want to see him continue to grow, but I'm going to stick to my one call of the year that was Chompy. I landed it in April this year. We come ahead all these months, and now people are considering one of the best fighting imps in the game. I'm hoping the best for Cal, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. I like the ZMN pick too. Like you said, I know that Imp had him in the engineer category. Like when you fill out the application on the site to participate in these, you have to say what class you want to play. I think it's top 3. Zeman had engineer as his first pick, and you're absolutely right. He was definitely the top engineer in the last season. I watched back the videos. I wasn't necessarily active during the first 2 weeks, but I did get to see him play, and week 2 definitely put a staple in his engineer performance. He's without a doubt one of the top engineers. He just plays, all 5 different ways you could play engineer. He plays them all in one game, which is, that's what you need out of an engineer. The fact that they picked him after Verb, like you said, I think they're going to play Verb as engineer, and I think I would like to see Zeman's JT get in, because a lot of defenses don't have, experience playing against a JTO, and if Zeman can, get in there, get the reps in, and get used to it, I think it could definitely toss, some other squads for a loop, where Chucky's really the only viable JT right now. So hopefully that, Z gets to play different classes. I know he's been playing infantry and mixes a lot lately, but I would like to see the JT.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if we saw ZMN play, honestly, 4 or 5 classes throughout these matches. He's able to, at an acceptable, playable level where it's not going to hurt anyone on either side for his team. So I wouldn't be surprised if Bonds just keeps moving him around as needed, depending on who shows up that week.
Yeah, for sure, based on availability and attendance.
Yep.
So I think that's all we got for Leeties. We're going to get into the next team now, which is Pizza Rats. This is Captain Mecca, who was second pick in the draft overall. Sorry, he had second pick in the draft overall. And Kelby, take us through Pizza Rats.
Yeah, I like the roster of the squad a lot. I've played, again, with and against Mecca back in summer. Not so much recently. I stepped away also when the draft league ended. Just got back recently. Haven't really seen him much. But I like the way he drafted this team. Obviously, he drafted Albert early on in the draft. Albert's got the CTF veteran experience. I'm sure he leaned into Albert a little bit when drafting this team, saying, hey, should we go fighter heavy? Should I grab utility? And whether they meant to or not, you've got Albert at 1, Waylander at 3, Soup at 4. These are all strong fighter classes that also pair into utility backups or subs. Two of you guys can play Engie, three of you guys can play medic. We saw these kind of constraints tear teams apart in the first draft where they didn't have enough utility backups. People couldn't show their strongest fighter was forced to play it. This is a really strong depth squad as far as different positions to play. So when I look at this roster, I see 4 extremely strong fighters given the community at 1 through 4 pick, and then obviously dilatory. Again, arguably the best med in the draft. We have Dilla, we have Bonds, we have Gotsalvi. These guys all play an aggressive style of medic. They communicate well when they're playing. So I do like it. Filling out the lineup, though, you look further into this. I like that Mecca waited and grabbed an SL towards the end. We talked about Captain X in the first draft league. At least I did on commentary months ago. And I came out to Decker and admitted, hey, I was wrong about this guy. I've never played with him. I can't remember playing against him 20 years ago. Is he going to show up? Is he going to play? I didn't see him in mixes. He showed up for Care Bears, and he was dominant. Like, when they had their full offense in, he was playing a really good SL. I like that they were able to get him on this squad later, and I think we'll see a lot of potential coming out of that. Again, talking about sleepers on this squad, the Pizza Rats, I think Billy, at 11, I played with Billy through the summer. Again, Billy plays a strong call inf given leadership, and I talked about the communication before. You've got a dilatory. You've got Albert. Maybe Waylander's a medic because Dilla's not there. You've got Soup. There's going to be a lot of communication on this squad that can help Billy know where to be if and when he's playing, and I think that's going to contribute a lot to his success. And then one more I want to call out is the Mountain. I believe the Mountain's a skirmisher. Correct me if I'm wrong. I saw him some throughout the summer. He mixed with us. He played, I think, 3 classes for me. I've seen him play SL. I've seen him play DNO Heavy, DNO Imp.
Yep.
So, again, it's just like we've got all these different pocket knives on this team, which can fit all these different keyholes. So it's hard to predict what the exact lineup's going to be out of here. And obviously, Albert, who I'm talking with, is on the squad. I don't want him to tell us. But I think it'll be cool to see week to week who and how they deploy the squad and the potential they can reach.
For sure. And I feel like me talking about this team right now, for you guys listening, I've gotten to play a couple mixes with this squad already. So, like, it could be a little bit biased what I'm going to say. But, like, just to talk about what Kelby said again about, like, Mountain, he's actually a really strong player. I didn't get a chance to play CTF with this guy ever. I played USL with him many years ago, and he's really good in that zone and in that league. But he's good in CTF too, which I was like really surprised with. I just didn't expect, I guess, a USLer who I haven't played with in a long time to come over here and just be so like versatile, be able to play these different classes and stuff. So it's really good to see that. And like you said about Captain Axe, we got him at 8th. I couldn't believe, like, me and Mecca were chatting as we were picking these teams. I could not believe that he was available on the way back when we got him. I didn't get to play with Axe ever in my entire infantry career. I've played against him very seldom. I think, like, when I was really getting into it, he was kind of on the way out back in the day during SOE days and CTFPL. So I've only heard things about him. I never really got to play with or against him. I watched the videos back from last season from Biso's stream, and this man literally is a game changer. It's insane that he went 8th, in my opinion. Like, I know everyone's trying to get, the infantries, the heavies, and stack their squad up with the most power they can. And then they lack in the, support class department. But for this team, in my opinion, we got one of the best medics, and we got one of the best SLs. That's super good. I got to play a mix with Axe. He's actually on the comms a lot too. Like, there's so much good communication from him when he's playing, when he's setting up his blinks, like what he's going to do. He's a strong pick. He's one of my favorites right now after getting to play with him. I'm pretty pumped about this season myself personally, but overall, I think that he should have went earlier, in my opinion. Like, he's a good pick there. He's a sleeper pick at 8. I know it's in the top 10, but that's just my opinion. And like you said with Billy, same thing. I got to play with him in that mix. He's on the comms a lot. He's, super communicative. He doesn't just you know, a lot of players when they're new that they're afraid to talk in CTF and they don't want to really say much, but he's not like that. If something's going on, or you know, if he's safe, he's anchored, he's letting the team know. He's not depending on macros. He's on the microphone. So super cool to see from him as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Axe, when we talk about the SL, Axe is a confident SL. Axe is not an SL that's going to sit back and just EB from max range to avoid the blink. Axe is trying to be a playmaker, and I love to see that. You know, I played seasons with Biz from Newfie. You know, he played on a few squads with me. We played mixes forever. And Herthbul, obviously, from all the different squads we shared, whether it was BDS, Camp Chaos, and whatnot. I love the SLs who are trying to make plays beyond just supporting the team. And I think Axe is low-key one of those guys. And I think the community doesn't really realize it yet because he's not so active during the weekly mixes, at least not from what I've seen. Apologies if that's wrong. But yeah, I love watching the guy play. I had a great time watching him in the first season and looking forward to doing it again.
All right, so that will clue it up for Pizza Rats. Next up, we have Running With Sissors, Captain Exodus, third pick in the draft. Kelby, take us through Running With Sissors.
Yeah, so this is a cool one. You know, Axis stepping up, captaining for the first time, doesn't have a ton of experience with it based on what I know about his past. Similar to the way Mecha drafted his squad, Axis's first four picks are key fighters. You know, we're looking at Galaxy, Chompy, Shadow, and Mites. These are strong infantry fighters within the community, those core classes you need that make up the bulk of both defense and offense in most cases. I like the strategy. I like that Mecha did it. I like that Axis followed it as well. Both Axis and Mecha, the previous captain we talked about, typically play O heavy. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be playing O heavy. We don't know. It's all predictions. Axis has been flirting with Engineer a little bit. I've seen in some mixes. I've seen Mecha play Imp, JT, other things. But I think it's cool that the two O heavy captains went 4 Imps after that. You know, get those people around them to support them on either side of the field and see how they can round it out. Exodus, to me, I think he got some of the best skill value picks at 4 and 5 with Mites and Tyrael. These guys won the CTFDL 1 championship on defense together, and I think they slipped in this draft due to potential personality clashes. These guys, sometimes they rub people the wrong way, whatever. As a competitor, I'd love to play with these guys. I think their skill is right up there with kind of the top population in their given positions. So I think those are really stills at 4 and 5, which you don't often see in drafts like this. It's usually pretty straightforward till you get to, you know, the 8 to 10 range. Beyond that, kind of the deep part of his roster, I can say I've played with 1992 recently. I played with him in summer. He wasn't communicating so well. Played with him the past couple weeks. Seems to communicate a little bit better. I've had him fill in with OIMP for me, sit on DIMP on a 3-imp defense before. He's a formidable fighter, just needs that instruction of, you know, when to push, when to take that choke. And that's just feeling the actual CTF competitive community beyond the dueling mat at A4. So if he can make that jump, you know, we talked about Cal before. This is someone that has the potential. You know, they can walk up and fight with someone, but they've got to get that feel for when to make a big play happen or when to help push a certain choke. Beyond that, you know, Doris Burke. To me, he was kind of a backup on Decker's championship squad, as I understand it. He did make contributions to the squad based on a few folks I talked with during summer. I've played, I think, 2 rounds with him in the past couple weeks. He can play SL, but he just needs that leadership help as well. Like, hey, man, you may want to stay here. There's a blink. Don't get caught from behind. As long as he's kind of guided on what to do, I think he can be an impact player. But it's similar to Mecha Squad. I'm a big fan of this roster. I love the way it was drafted, kind of top to bottom. And there is one key factor I want to call out because this happened last season on one of the squads. Breakdance at number 9. So we saw Breakdance sign up last league, get drafted, expected to play starting Engie for the team featuring Posty and Salv. Turned out he couldn't show to the matches. There was some miscommunication. And Salv, arguably the best fighter in the whole league, was forced to play Engineer. I'm hoping we don't see that again this league. I want to see Breakdance actually participate, because if not, to me, this whole roster gets a little iffy if suddenly you don't have an Engineer. Then you're maybe moving Axie to Engineer. Maybe Debris, who's been flirting with it, plays Engineer. I don't know. But I'm hoping these guys can just show their expected starting 10, and I think it can form some problems for other squads.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially, you know, like Breakdance not showing up. As an experienced engineer who had to lead squads, I think it's one of the most difficult classes to lead a squad from, just for the simple fact that you're not always on the defense or the offense. So you could be mining, you could be in the dropship, you know, trying to get back in the day, I guess you'd have to buy your kits and stuff. So like there's a lot of downtime, especially when you die, you have to wait 10 seconds, you have to spawn, get your hoverboard, go to the mines. Like you're killing minutes of time trying to mine, but you're not involved in the fight. You don't know what's going on. So it makes it difficult to lead a squad that way. looking at this team, I don't know if there's anyone else who would step up to lead the squad other than Axie, and I'm not sure like who would have the experience to do it. So like in my mind, Axie's leading. If he has the engineer, that puts a lot of strain on his team, which you don't necessarily want in a competitive aspect. Talking about the 4 and 5 picks here, there's 4 picks between both of these players. I'm surprised that he was able to get these two, even back to back like that, with four picks being between. Like you said, there's a lot of skill, there's a lot of experience in CTFDL between these two players. It's kind of surprising to me personally that, being involved in the picking as well, that these players went so far apart and so far into the league. Like you said, it might be that it was the personality clashes that some people had with them, especially like in our mixes and OVDs now. But I mean, in a competitive aspect, like you said, you should want players like this on your team with their skill and experience. So I'm pretty surprised that it went that far apart. And then, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention real quick, we talked about the potential, leadership deficit. If Axie has to move his roster around and he needs someone else to lead from a different side, I would strongly still make the case, I know this is a controversial one, that Mites or Ethereal, those 4 and 5, they do have the experience in CTF. I've played with them in mixes where it's feeling competitive. These guys will step into a vocal leadership role. The trolling goes out the window, we set the ego aside. When it comes to where there's actual stakes to play for, like this victory means something, I trust those guys to put forward their best effort, drop the PC, drop the kill macros, and let's get it done. Like, let's go out here and win a championship. We saw it last league under Decker's squad, had the same feedback from Decker and Flair, who I talked to post-championship, who, Mites especially. How was it playing with Mites? Mites is a big controversial member in the community. It was great. Mites helped us. Mites made good calls, and I've had the same experience as playing defense with Mites. So I'm a fan of these guys' play. I think they're capable of leadership. They just got to take it seriously if needed.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They have to take it serious if they want to win, especially if Axie has to play that support class role. I hope that Axie gets to play O-Heavy because, like, I talked to him a fair bit, and I know he wants to. So,
for sure.
Everyone playing this is playing it to have fun. They're playing it because they like it, and they definitely have a preferred class. And I know his is O-Heavy, so I hope he does get to play it. He is one of the better fighters in the game, so, like, hopefully it all works out. Breakdance can show up, and if not, they, like to figure something else out for that engineer position. Other than that, in my opinion, Chompy, machine, absolute machine fighter. I'm excited to see how he plays. I'm excited to play against him and watch him play against other squads because did he play last season, Kelby?
Yeah, so Chompy played, I believe, under Posty and Soft Squad. He was rotating in and out of that thick roster where they got all their players some playtime.
Okay, yeah. So I didn't really get to see him play. I wasn't involved last season a whole lot. I watched back some videos, so I didn't really get to see the whole gameplay of him or even in mixes for that matter. I have been watching him a little bit more since I've been back because like I'm recognizing that he is a good fighter and a lot of people are talking about it. I mean, second overall pick for this team, something notable, and you want to watch someone that gets picked like that, especially being so heavily involved as myself. And he is a great fighter, so I can't wait to see how he plays in that competitive aspect. I know he does real good in mixes and stuff, but it's a little bit different when, you got the, I guess, nervousness of, 50, 60 people watching you and you're in a competitive game with a whole lot going on. So I'm excited to see how he performs.
Yeah, and, he's making that stride in multiple areas. It kind of started at the A4 dueling mat. Chompy wanted to duel forever. He spent days and days, weeks and weeks, let's call it months at this point, dueling. He's a good dueler now. He then played with us, a few of us that like to be vocal on offense. He played OMF with us. He's learned from us. He came off mute on Discord at this point, and I've heard him lead some offensive calls. And I love to hear that from other people, because too often it's just mute. Let's attack a base and see what happens. And I love someone making a call out like, hey, if we take this angle, we can grab the MG. Yeah, let's try it. So I'm glad to see him growing in all the different aspects of what makes great players great in this game, and I hope he keeps going forward.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so that'll be it for Running with Sissors. We're going to get into the next team right now. This is Posty's team. They had the 4th pick overall. Team name, Big Raccoons Under Hats. Kelby, take us through this team.
Yeah, so we keep talking about this trend that started with Mecha's team. We're going to draft 4 fighters to start this, and that's what Posty did. So Posty, as I know it, he kind of mains as a medic. He's a very vocal communicator from defense, and he wanted to surround himself with the fighters needed to, again, start the foundation of an offense and a defense. You can see that with his first 4 picks. His 5th pick The reigning defending champion Decker, captain of Care Bear squad, typically an engineer main, can also double as a squad leader. I like playing with him in any capacity because he's a good communicator. He's cool under pressure. He's not a panic kind of player. A lot of cool things about this roster beyond just the fighters. We have Decker at 5, Infinite at 11. Infinite got some playtime in the first draft league. He still gets playtime in mixes consistently. It'll be cool to see, do they swap that in and out? Is someone going to NG this game? Someone's going to NG the next? Is one of them going to take on main as a different class? I've seen Infinite play medic in some games, but we just don't know yet. And looking at this roster as far as depth, we've got Mike Jones beyond Infinite. And New York Mike Jones played under Axis' squad last season on some surprisingly strong offenses. These guys took Care Bears down at A7 prior to the big playoff weeks and what many consider the biggest upset of the whole draft. This was Mixum's team that did not show a ton of players that week. They had all their depth players in, but that offense got it going at A7. Axis was swinging his D heavy from F4 into A7, and they overwhelmed them eventually, got the flags out, won the game. That was, I want to say week 2, could have been week 3, but somewhere in the middle of that season. So I like the depth there. He's also someone that has kind of raw fighting skills. He just needs coordination help, like when to push, when to feel that momentum, when to take charge of something, and he can make that next step. And then last on depth, I'd say Solo Camo. This guy was around in summer again, in mixes, trying to get in all the time. He's gotten in some since then. I've seen him play a little bit of D heavy, a little bit of O heavy. He's the same boat, just as a heavy. He can line it up and take down turrets as long as someone's instructing him when to push, when to fill that, when you have a safe window, let it rip. We talk about how quick an AC can take down a turret. That's such an emphasis on these heavies to not tunnel vision into getting kills when you're fighting around boxes, but feel that you're safe in the moment and you're the highest DPS pressure you can put on the turrets and take it. So if there's someone like Iron, who's his first overall pick, leading that offense, which again, it's all predictions. I don't know who's going to play what position. That could be someone that subs in one game or comes in, who knows what their lineup looks like, and leads an offense. We'll see what it looks like, but it should be fun.
I agree with the Solo Camo comment. I would play against him last night in a mix as engineer, and like you said, some heavies are more like tunnel visioned on, oh, mate, I need to get some kills. The breakdown at the end of the game got to be good. That, whatever that says is what it is. So if I got a good breakdown, I'm a good player. It's not like that, especially as a heavy. Like, your job is to kill turrets. That breakdown doesn't show you killing turrets, so it doesn't really matter how many kills and deaths you have. This guy's not afraid to get up there. Like, I played against him. I was at A7 as engineer. He was, as soon as those imps started going, dude, he was with them. He wasn't hesitating. He wasn't RPGing. He's like, let me get up there and take down some turrets. So it's good that, like, you see a new player like this. Well, for me, he's a new player coming in. He's 15th pick overall here on this team, but he knows what to do, and he's obviously listening to, like, people like you and other people in mixes who are leading the teams and the OVDs, telling him, like, yo, just get up here, set up, take down a turret. That's what we need to do. That's your job. And it's good to see that he can interpret that and hold on to it and retain it and then put it into, like, these mixes now that he's playing and stuff like that. So, in my opinion, having a player who can do that as 15th pick, that's really, really good. So solid pick there for Posty for 15th. For leadership sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to mention before we move on, there are some mid picks I want to touch on this one. Maybe one of the most notable ones for me, I just talked about Might Centurial at 4 and 5 on a previous squad. I really like Scarface at the 6th pick here. So I didn't know much about Scarface. I don't remember what his alias was back in the day when we were all kids playing infantry, but I watched a lot of the defense of Dark Bomber squad last season. And this was a squad that during the draft, we all predicted, those of us that were talking and, making these bold predictions, this squad was going to fall over to everyone. They didn't have the fighting potential. Again, happy to admit I was wrong on that. I think Scarface is a very capable DM. I think the value at 6 is incredible. I would not have batted an eye if he was, picked 3 or 4 in this case. So I'm big on Scarface. And then the new player, Imp, at number 8, who knows what he can bring. I've played with him a few times. He acts like a nice guy. He knows my name somehow, but it'll be cool to see how he's deployed getting back into CTF.
I agree with the Scarface stuff. I believe if it's the guy I'm thinking of, and I'm like 99% sure it is, he came from USL. His old alias was Torch. He had another alias too that I can't remember, like back in SOE days. I played on multiple squads with this guy in USL, and he's like a solid player. Like, he's a top player in USL. So it's like no surprise that he's good in CTF as well. I did get to watch his DINF a little bit in those videos, and he was one of the standout players that I seen from, like, Viso's stream in last season. It sucks that he's not playing in OVDs and mixes now because, like, I've been back for 3 weeks playing, I guess, I'll say. And I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him log on once. I've seen him on the Discord a few times talking. And I seen him play in those games, and he was good. So it would be good to see him come back and, like, you know, freshen up, I guess. Sunday's coming real soon. Matches are starting. But for 6th place, man, you're absolutely right. He should have went 3rd, 4th for squads. I think he's got a lot of talent, and I know from before he was very vocal on comms. So I have no doubt that he's still vocal. I haven't had to experience that yet, but like I know that if he's got something to say, he's gonna say it. So really good, solid pick there for 6th. I just want to say, like, when I was talking with Mecca back and forth on picks, he's one of the guys that I was like, yo, on the way back, we got to get him. He's still available. And it just didn't happen. But Posty got him 2 before us, so you can't win them all. But I'm excited to see him play. He's like a player like Chompy for me, where like I want to see the talent that he has, and I want to see him do good. So other than that, I think for leadership on this squad, like Posty, he was a captain last season, so like hopefully he's got some, you know, new tricks up his sleeve that he learned from last season that he can bring forward into this season. But you do have Revenge, who I know is active on comms, and Arn as well, which I haven't got to play with Arn yet, but I know that he has played a lot of CTFPL when I get given it up. He remained active throughout, I believe, season 20. He didn't stop. He's also super active in USL, so I think he's good on the comms, and he'll bring insight. Also, a very strong player, number 1 pick. I don't think Posty could have picked anybody else in that position. Solid player all around, so I think he's going to bring some good stuff to this squad as well. I hope one thing I will say is that SSJ Cloud shows up. I did get to play with him back in SOE days. He was on one version of Newfie. I don't know what season it was. But super cool dude and really good, strong DINF. I hope that he does get to come back and play and shake the rust off and get involved in some games. I don't know if he will. So, like, getting picked at 13, like, I don't know, Kelby, if you've seen him play at all in, like, the last 7 months, but I haven't seen him on.
No, even when I was mixing a lot through the summer and whatnot, I don't recall seeing SSJ on. I remember the name from the original days, and we're all kids having a good time, but I've not seen this guy active. So if he shows up, that'll be my first sighting, I think.
Okay, so yeah, hopefully he shows, because like picking him at 13, you want a 13th player to show up regardless of what the position is. You need him in there, because you pick 3 behind him, you're hoping that person shows for sure. I just want to make a quick notable, I guess, bring up of Demon as well. Demon didn't get to play last season. He was on, I'm going to say, ZMN's team. Didn't get to unspec in any games. I think this season, being the 9th pick, he will get to play. He's been very active in CTF as of late. He's been playing mixes, OVDs. I believe the first OVD of yesterday, Kelby, we played against him, and the defense held for a while. So
yep.
I think that he could do some good things in here. He is a squad captain for many, many seasons in USL, and his squad is always like one of the top. He's won many championships in there with like Sav and the boys. So I think that he's going to be like a good pickup for this team. He's very active on comms as well. Like, he leads teams in USL, so he's no stranger to it. And he's like a good player, a good smart player. So he's going to retain information, and I know that he's going to be like willing to learn and stuff like that. I'd like to see Demon join the dojo next season, and or like the next version of the dojo, and get involved in that more so that he can learn like positioning and stuff like that. I think he'd be a killer for many squads if he could do that. Other than that, I think that is it for this squad, unless you have something else to add.
Just a quick shout out to Revenge. He completed his midlife controversy and from the whole Raygun transition back to Revenge. So it's good to have him back on his normal alias, not as Hydra Troll. I hope he's on another squad as a different alias, because I'm all here for the drama. But I also think he's a strong player who can complement the defense or offense, regardless of the alias he plays on.
Maybe he signed up as Zay as well, and now he could play each week as a different name.
Or he's going to play at the same time, like 2 PC setups, the dueling pianos.
All right, next up, we got Cuck. Captain is Head. They were 5th pick, which many people are like, oh, you got the last pick in the draft. That sucks. But one thing to remember is that you get 5th and 6th pick. So he got back-to-backs for 1 and 2 on his team, which I think is it's a pretty good position to be in, especially in a 85-man draft. You can get 2 solid players as 5th pick. So, Kelby, take us through this team.
Yeah, sure. So this is the last team that we're going to go through, and as mentioned, they're at the snake end of the draft. So when he took Chucky and RR, it didn't matter who went first and second. These are back to back. I thought it was really interesting that he grabbed Chucky first because if you guys remember, Head was one of the few people to play JT in the last draft league. So maybe he's not planning on playing JT this league, or maybe Chucky's planning on playing a different class. But either way, Chucky is and should be known as the most prominent JT figure in the community right now.
Yep.
He was, part of the leadership in that championship-winning offensive Care Bears. He's a strong player. He communicates well, much better than he did 20 years ago, if you all know what I'm talking about. But yeah, he's a good teammate at this point. I don't mind the pick on Chucky. It's also kind of a surprise to people that he picked RR User. I'm just speculating here, but RR User was shot calling on Dark Bomber Squad and CTFDL 1 the first season. Head was on that squad playing offense with him. Maybe he liked the way Matt was shot calling. He got comfortable with it. Whatever the case, he picked up Matt here, likely to lead his offense, not participate on defense. But again, who knows until the matches start. Going beyond that, he then does go into a few more fighters. We've got Worth and Caratank, two very similar DMs typically. These are aggressive, carapace preferring DMs. I've not seen Worth around the past couple weeks, but I've played plenty of games with him against Caratank. As long as GT, who was lauded for his excellent communication last season, can communicate well for this defense, I think they could form a very strong defense. Again, this squad is filled with the previous season's champions, a lot of them. So we've got, X5, Plaps, Power, Chucky. All of these guys come from Care Bears. They're coming hot off a win. I'm projecting them to be in the starting lineup, assuming they're available. And yeah, the only vulnerability I could see on this team is a shortage of those experienced fighters. So we talked about, we draft Chucky. We don't want to face a JT. That's my guess, whatever the case be. You are sacrificing something there when you take Chucky instead of one of the premier, dueling, fighting, DMs, OMs, whatever the case. So because of that, the previous three squads we went through, they went 4 fighters in a row. This squad kicks off with Chucky, then goes 3 fighters. So they are down a fighter in that comparative position. We'll see, can Chucky propel like he did Care Bears last season, along with the help of Flair, who has moved on to greater things. Grats again, new father Flair. But yeah, it's a new season, new look. We'll see, can they overcome what looks like a shortage compared to other squads and fighters and make up for it with, versatility between Head, who can play 3 different classes, Chucky, who can play 3 different classes, and then just communication from RR leading offense, probably GT leading defense, and then a lot of flexibility offered by X5, who I've played with him against X5 a lot the past summer. I like playing with him. I enjoy playing against him. I think he's a competitor. Again, we talk about some people just have personality clashes. I don't think I have that with X5. I'm fine with him playing NG for me, Medic for me, SL for me, Inf Heavy, whatever the case. I think he's a good pocket knife, like we talked about from Mecha Squad, all these different players who can play almost every class. I like it. I just think this squad, they're a little short on fighters, but that's more of a rational take because when you take a JT first, it's a big sacrifice to say we don't have one of those top fighters in the top 5 picks.
Yeah, for sure. To talk about the X5 pick, I know they have Plaps on this team, but I'm just going to make the point that X5 has been playing engineer lately, and he's a really strong engineer. He's a good fighter. He's a smart engineer. He has no problem playing like the multiple positions of the engineer. He has these different setups as well, red setups, like the untraditional RT way out front in like multiple bases. And I gotta say, like, for the most part in these mixes and OVDs, he's not losing rets like a whole bunch. I really would like to see him play engineer this season, but again, with Plaps on the team, like if he shows up, I think it would not be smart to play him as engineer just because, like you said, he can play engineer, he can play engineer, infantry, SL, like he can play it all. So it probably wouldn't help this team any if Plaps was there and he was playing engineer, but I would love to see him play a couple games as engineer just to see how it all pans out because we haven't really seen it in like a super competitive, aspect. But to touch on the Chucky pick, I'm not sure if Head was like maybe thinking like, okay, I got 5th pick. It's going to be hard to get like those real good, top, 3-4 players on my team. And maybe he thought like, if I get Chucky, like at some point, Chucky will fluke out a flag like JTs do. And also like maybe he was thinking, well, Chuck's real good. He's flying around shooting RGs, GL, he's G9ing. He's just as good as having a fighter anyways. The only thing that takes away from is like you said, you can't really move that guy around and then have him as like a DM for whatever because he's, he's a JT. So I'm interested to see how it all plays out. I think that Head and RR were like buds from back in the day, and maybe you said like with the leadership on the last squad, he might have liked it. I know that RR was like helping him throughout the picks and stuff, and they were talking because during the live stream, RR would be like, I think that he should get Worth next, and sure enough, he picked Worth. You know what I mean? And there's a couple times where he was like, we're talking a little bit. So, I think that a lot of these picks were planned. Like, I think they probably had like, all right, here's 20 people. Let's try to get, at least 10 of these people. And whoever was available on that list as they went down, that's who they grabbed. So like RR kind of knew who it was he was getting next. But I don't know if RR has the most experience playing with a JTO. I didn't play from like season 13 on. 13 was my last season, so like I didn't get to see a whole lot of what people were doing then. So I don't know if he did get to play with a whole lot of JTOs. I'm excited to see how he does with a JTO. I know he's going to be leading the offense because that's like when he takes that role whenever he plays with different teams. And I know like even in the dojo, he was the offensive like captain leading the offense each week and like trying to teach them different things. So I know he's going to take that role again on this team, and that's probably why I had picked him so early. So I'm excited to see how he does with Chucky and like how he leads that offense and what they do. I do know another thing too, that Chucky can also play a pretty good heavy. So he's like a competent heavy. If JT's not working, all right, let's switch it up. We'll go heavy. We'll run with the power. So that gives him some flexibility on this squad as well.
Yeah, and it's really either side for Chucky's heavy. Jaguar can play D heavy if they decide to take a long base. If Jaguar's not available, Chucky can play D heavy. He's got so many years of experience playing this game against multiple teams. He's played on so many different styles of offense. It's easy enough to plug in his D heavy and play that. Just to touch on a little bit of the depth of this squad, this might be, the overall most underrated aspect of these squads, but I want to call out two players here, and this is Doc and Ant. So we think about the mix community. We don't think, oh yeah, we get these guys in mixes all the time. They're great to play with. That's not really what they're known for. But I talked to some of the folks from Care Bears, where both these folks came from. Again, I mentioned some of the starting talent they have from that championship squad. Well, here's the spec info from that squad. So these guys are making the calls from spec, which is very important in organized play, of what to look out for, what to take advantage of, different things to try. I love the picks here. I don't know if they have plans on actually, unspecking and playing this draft. But I talked with Doc a little bit during the league last time, and he was talking about, yeah, I'm giving spec info, helping out. I think these are strong players to provide information to the folks unspec'd, and it's an advantage to have those strong communicators and strategists up top to look down on the team and help guide them.
Yeah, I agree. You like took the words out of my mouth about the spec info portion of it. I feel like when it comes to CTF competitive play, we're kind of cut from the same cloth where we have the same mindset about a lot of stuff. I told my squad as soon as we got put in a private chat together, hey guys, I know there's 16 people on this team. I know only 10 people start each week. Everyone's going to try to get some play time, but if you're not playing in a particular game, a particular week, just know that the people in the spec are just as, if not more important, than an O infantry running through the base, all right? Like, they're so, spec info is so dependent on good playing in this, and I know it's not everything, and I know if you have a stacked O, sure, they don't need spec info on a blink, but man, if you don't have the spec info, there's so many things that can go wrong, from a blink at your home to the medic blinking on your SL, class switches, where an info might be on a 10-man if they switch right away, and we don't have ES right now. There's just so much that player can do for a team being in spec. It's not all about being in the game. So I just want to say that for any people that are maybe 16 through 10 that got picked, that are like, oh man, I'm kind of discouraged. I got picked so late, I might not be able to contribute to my team. It ain't like that. If you show up and you put in that effort and you do good at spec info, that goes a long way. I know that Doc and Ant got picked, 12th and 14th for spec info. Ant wanted to go at 69. It was his, that was his number. he would have ended up on Mecha's team. I would have loved to have him on Mecha's team because I know he does so good at spec info, and it's such an important part. So I just want to reiterate that don't feel down if you're not in a game, and especially if you're a starter and you don't play a game. I expect you, even if you're 1 through 5, if you're not in a game, man, you should be driving home important information. That doesn't mean flood the comms with every little bit of thing. The important shit. That's what people need to know. That's what your team needs to know, and it's going to make your team way better. So I just want to stress that point.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Real quick, if I can interject. When we talk about, the different spec info events, I can think that recently CTFDL1, Captain Axe, we talked about him earlier, landing these crucial blinks, and then the team's attaching to him. So I know for a fact one of the squads that Captain Axe went up against while teaming with Flare had spec info and Flare's info the whole time. so they know where flare is, they know where his blinks are. They lost track of Captain Axe at F4. F4 gets a deep blink, they attach to him, and they kill all of the turrets off the SL's blink. That's the difference in having like adequate spec info for all these huge key plays that can happen throughout a game, and having partial or no spec info. It's literally game changing. You look back at the old CTFDL when we were kids. The name Joe comes to mind. The controversial stolen alias Joe. This guy, yeah, he played Medic and Vantage. He came up with a lot of us. Like he brought some of us up and taught us the ins and outs of CTF. But that guy's so good in spec and folks. He'll make the crucial calls. He knows what to look at and look for. And I believe that Doc and Ant both have that potential based on what I've heard from, again, former members of Care Bears last season. And I think it's great that they got to reunite with a lot of that same core roster, minus Decker, who's on a different squad and captained them last season. I think it's cool. There's a lot of familiarity with 4 to 6 people on that squad under head. So they could take that and parlay it into something special.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's so important. I love that you brought up the Captain Axe thing where he cleared those, where the team was able to clear those rets. That totally slipped my mind, but it's so important. And when you get to play with Herthbul in these mixes and stuff, he'll blink at the D7 switch, and he'll just blink, open up the door. You got 4 infantries waiting to go in, and they just collapse on a full team because that's where the team's at. And it clears teams so often. I think it's literally like downplayed. Like it's frowned upon to be spec info. Oh, I'm spec info. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to leave. Like it should be the other way around. Like you should take pride in it, and you should want to do a good job. And then, like I said, Doc, Ant, these guys have no expectations of playing. I don't even think they want to unspec in this game. But they're getting picked like higher up because they're good at what they do. They're good at their job. They're contributing to the team. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. They pulled out a championship. And I would say it's heavily dependent on their information that they were given the team.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, for those two especially, they have nothing to prove. I've played with them. As kids, I played with Doc and CTFX. This guy was elite engineer for us on what many consider this dominant squad for years. With Ant, we shared some time on Vantage, played together a little in, during, after that. There's just nothing left to prove. These guys have done it in the community. I think they're more in the helping role at this point. If they don't want to play, that's fine. If they want to play, hey, come play in the mixes with us. I'll be glad to pick you. Nothing to it.
Yeah, for sure. Both great personalities too, in my opinion. Like, I get to joke around with Ant. I get to play some Deadlock with Doc. Like, it's all fun and games with these guys. So it'd be good to see him actually come in and unspec and stuff. I believe Ant said too, he wanted to join the dojo next season. I don't know if he was, just talking shit or whatever, making a joke, but it would be good to see him do that because I feel like he wants to get better. I seen him make a couple comments on it, and he wants to unfade and stuff. So hopefully he does go to the dojo. And for anyone else listening to this right now, if you want to sign up to the dojo, Silly takes everybody. He works with everybody. As long as you're willing to learn, you have no issue getting in there and learning, becoming a better player, and that way you can contribute better to your team. So definitely do that. So that's all we have on Cook. Now that we're done those, I want to talk about a little bit, Kelby, about what these squads can do differently, such as like strategic plays, lineup plays. I know last season when I was commentating, I said like with the one flag sudden death, if I was leading a team, you can see the other team's got 3 infos in right now. They're switching to JT. They're flying to all these different areas. They're fighting on the bridge. They have, turrets set up on the bridge. They're making a home. They only have their medic at home. Why wouldn't you just, send 9 people to the enemy base instead of sending 9 people scattered throughout the map? So, like, what do you think that teams can do differently from last season, this season, that could be, like, game-changing or different strategic plays they can make?
Yeah, so I think a couple points here, a little bit multifaceted if I can. I think first it's with lineups. Brand new rosters. There is some familiarity shared across some of these rosters like we talked about, but there's different class combinations that are becoming more and more meta in the recent resurgence of mixes. I've played on many offenses in the past 2 weeks where we're running a JT on foot or pack, a heavy, and 2 infantries. I'd love to see that come into official play because I think there is value when you have someone skilled enough to play JT without falling over instantly. Having GL constantly surging through as long as the SLZV is coming, it makes it so much easier to take boxes, which is where most of these power offenses fail. They either take too long to take boxes or they rush it and they die. They miss that sweet spot of waiting for the drain to come through and killing an imp or 2 and letting your heavy set up. With a JT having that additional bounce weapon to pair with EB, man, you can just all of a sudden pick off 1 or 2 imps and you're set. And then when they try to push out, that GL's bouncing them back, forcing their reps. They may rep a JT GL depending on the angle. They kill their own NG. I love playing with a JT in offense when it's someone capable of doing it, and I like to see it. Even beyond that, last season, it surprised a lot of people when Care Bears came out the gate and Flair was playing Infiltrator with Chucky.
Yeah.
That is the traditional, most successful CTFPL offense. JT Infil, sadly, I've been a part of it. Albert's been a part of it. Most people listening have played with it. It's not my favorite to play with, but it is effective. So we didn't see it hardly at all in mixes for 3 to 4 months leading up to this league. And then all of a sudden, Flair and Chucky come out rolling with it. And I mean rolling. These guys are taking everyone by surprise. Our predictions are wrong. Decker's got the squad firing on all cylinders. Good to go. I'd like to see more stuff kind of reintroduced this season, whether it's JT Infil again with Head and Chucky together, 2 JTs, I don't know, double JT, double infantry, whatever the case. I just want to see something different. I thought it was really cool that Care Bears was able to catch people off guard that first week, where I doubt anyone practiced against JT Infil going into that week because we hadn't seen it in mixes. Chucky flies in with Flair, and these guys are just getting crushed in like 10 minutes the first game, 6 minutes the second game. So I'm excited to see if people come in with different things. Bring out the foot JT, bring out the additional pack JTs. Let's change things up. If anyone wants to bring out my favorite offense, which is 2 SLs, 2 infantries, and a heavy, feel free to. You have my permission. I love playing with the double EB, the TD on the medic to prevent the flank and everything. Get it going, save it for the matches, catch people off guard. I just want to see something different. I don't want to see the heavy offenses coming in, stalling up until overtime because they're not setting up correctly. Like, if you're going to run a heavy offense, be patient with it. I said it in commentary over and over last league. When you're running that heavy offense, the EB is the key to it. The SL is so key to that offense because you need some drain to move the DMs around, whether you're attacking A7 at the top boxes, A5 at the bottom, D6 at the bottom, F4 at the bottom. You've got to have an EB threat. And if you see these teams pushing without their SL contributing, it looks really hard for them because they're essentially 4 versus 4 with turrets backing the defensive 4. So if you're playing power, slow it down, wait 5 seconds for your SL to rejoin the fight, and then push it. But yeah, I'm excited to see different strategies. Shout out to Care Bears, who did bring out the unexpected JT Info last season. My least favorite offense, but I still respect success. So yeah, anything like that, I'm all for it.
I think if a team came out with an infill, even if it's not with a JT, but like an infill in the 5v5 and like actually use it, not just for flagging or pushing out or whatever, I think it would catch so many teams off guard. There's so many players who are not even used to playing with ES. They wouldn't even understand like the extra energy drain. They probably wouldn't be able to manage it so good. You know what I mean? I think it would really throw teams for a loop, especially the new players that are playing who have never had to play with ES other than 10 men. I think that the infill would be squeaking by, people wouldn't even notice them in there, and then they'd have to fumble to try to change macros to get ES. I think it would throw teams for a complete loop. I love the different suggestions like double SL, whatever it may be. I think that if people start doing it, it would probably catch on, like the 2 JTs. As an engineer, there's nothing worse than defense like members repping GL, man. If you're healing a turret, you're low energy, and a GL, 1 GL, it's all it takes, man. And then your turrets go down. It's so frustrating. So I would love to see more of it. Like you said, I'm not a fan of a JT offense flagging with an infill, but it would be good to see that. It would be good to see people practicing it, bringing it back. Right now, infill's completely useless unless it's to get a flag or it's to defend on a 10-man or an offense. You know what I mean? You don't see it being used.
Yeah, and again, the JT infill, some of those first offenses I mentioned from Care Bears last season, it was chaotic to commentate on because I like to be on my P's and Q's. I'm ready to watch everything and keep people involved. But Flair's setting a blink, and then right after that, Axe has a blink 20 seconds later. Like, creating that chaos theory when you're attacking a traditional 5v5 is so frustrating for a defense. And you talked before about some of the newcomers coming in. It is different playing under the lights, and that's a cliche that's typically reserved for sports. But it's true in this game too. Like, when you're playing a mix or you're playing an OVD for fun, it's one thing. When you're playing and there's 70 people watching you, you know it's being recorded. There's people talking about it. It feels different. The stakes are higher. You want to get it going. You can either crumble to that or you can feel the momentum going your way and ride it all the way to the finish. So I love the chaos of things being different. I hope we get to see some different things. I don't want to see the patented double dragon nonsense that Flair was running around, the engineer's reprogram kit that's bugged or something. I don't want to see all the controversial threads about it. Just someone run that and say, my turrets were stolen, I couldn't take them back. So I'm staying away from that one. But outside of that, I'm game for anything. Whoever wants to bring out the O-Medic and trank everyone, let's see it.
It definitely would be cool to see. I just want to talk about the Under the Lights comment you made again. We played a mix against a squad, like as a squad, Pizza Rats versus another squad. It was for nothing. We had a bunch of people in the arena watching. It was our very first team, like 10v10, full team like 10v10 mix, and I felt it then. Like it obviously wasn't like a Newfie versus BDS season final for all the marbles or anything, but like that feeling is what I play this game for. Like that nervous, like holy shit, I'm anxious. I want to play this. I want to do good. I want to win. Like I love that, and it's why I play this game. To be honest, it's fun, but it's like that's the feeling that I want, and I just love competitive CTF. I didn't play in the first draft league just because I was so busy in real life. Now stuff's calmed down. Like I couldn't wait to get in here. I did wait until like the very last day to join it just because I was going to commentate with Biso if he was going to stream it again. But now that I'm playing with this team and like I'm involved more, I'm glad he didn't, because now I get to play. I get to get that competitive aspect back. And I hope that other people who are like, kind of hesitant on playing it, maybe had a bad experience season 1, or is like, oh, it's just like I wouldn't want to play with certain people. Like there's trades now. Like just get involved. Play. You might have fun. You might not. Who knows? But it's getting more competitive. I know that this season looks, to me personally, looks way more competitive than last season. So, get involved, learn, play those competitive games. You might get that feeling as well. So,
yep. And I think, these draft leagues, this being the second one, I think it's an underrated social opportunity for people. You're playing with the same folks for almost a month. You're going to have practices in between, more than likely, for both squads. You're going to get to know people, not only their game tendencies, but just being on comms with them. Like, yeah, you can make some friends across the internet here. And I think that's an underrated aspect about infantry, where a lot of us, we keep coming back here because we've known each other since we were kids. Like, we became friends on infantry, and now here we are. You win a championship, like, let's take Care Bears, for example. I'm sure there were some cool, like, social things that happen in here where friendships were born out of the squad, and I like to see that. It sounds very cliche and cheesy, we're talking about a video game, but that's real life. Like, we're all adults, we're sacrificing time typically at night to play this game, get to know people. I love that part of it, and I hope that other squads get to enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look at our group. We've been in a group chat for 20 years maybe, and
way too long.
Way too long.
We should delete it.
I feel like I talk to you guys more than I talk to a lot of people that I've known in my life for like 10 years. So you're absolutely not wrong. And just from mixing once with my current squad, like there's been people who have had beefs that have been squashed. I've met new people. Like me and Billy, I've never talked to that guy in my life. We talk now every time he logs in. We're having conversations. I know a lot about this guy's life now. Like it's cool. It's cool to learn about people and, become friends with people. And it's like something you can take to a new squad, and then you get to play against those people, some casual banter. It's just fun, right? So I couldn't agree more with all that.
Yeah, so, and I think maybe with that, we talk a little bit about the differences in sudden death and OT now, if that's okay?
Yeah, so big change for this season. It's definitely the biggest change that's happened. There hasn't been a whole lot of things change. So sudden death is no more. We're going to a overtime type scenario. So after 30 minutes, overtime gets... I believe Axie's going to code it so that it's automatically set. It goes off on its own. If a game hits 30 minutes, automatically during 5v5, so while no squad holds all flags, there's a 50% heal cut on both medkits, and then there's a 33% engineer repair kit cut, which brings it from 75 HP healing to 50. Again, once a team has all flags and you're on 10 man, or if you go back to 5v5, it automatically turns off. So that's the biggest change. And just so if anyone's listening that didn't play last season or is unsure of what happened last season, there was a one flag system. So once OT, I believe it was 45 minutes, Kelby, you could probably correct me.
Yeah, that's correct.
So at 45 minutes, the sudden death command was activated, and then automatically there was one flag spawned in one of 5 locations, completely random, and then it just forced a 10-man, so it forced the game to end roughly after 45 minutes. A lot of people, including myself, was not a fan of that. Like, you didn't want to play a big match 45 minutes. Your squad could be doing fantastic, and then all of a sudden, boom, you lose because someone else grabbed a flag that wasn't you. So in my opinion, this is a way better step, way better movement towards better competitive gameplay and better outcomes, and probably more fulfilling feeling at the end of it. Like, if you lose at the end of this because of, a heel cut, it's not so bad as you played 45 minutes. Oh, too bad. ZMN knew where the flag was going and he grabbed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like this proposal a lot more than I did the first one. We talk about, like, what advantages can you gain in infantry without finishing a base? And the big answer is resources. We talk about Infinite as a prominent engineer in the community. This guy can pile up hundreds, and I mean hundreds of talks in the dropship. In the old sudden death, none of that matters. It's essentially who's going to grab this flag off the bridge or the caves first. In the new sudden death, that matters a lot because the game continues, the flag states remain as they are up until 10 man. And in this 5v5 game, when it's more stress on the engineer and the medic, which is caused, it's nice to have that surplus of minerals you've earned by outplaying your opponent, creating space for the utility mining. I touched on that kind of in the first league. We unfortunately had so many games go to sudden death. I think all of the games involving Dark Bomber and ZMN's team went to sudden death. Apologies if wrong, maybe one didn't. But that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. I like this one because it reserves the game state, allows people to keep the advantages they've earned from outplaying their opponent up to that state. And just for a little bit of clarity for everyone, when this goes in, once those flags are captured, once the base goes down, you get to a 10-man timer and victory's been alerted, that gets disabled. So during the 10-man, healing still works, repairing should still work and everything. It's only in that 5v5 where it's kind of choking out the utility classes to make this game end sooner.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it's designed to do. It's not like a no matter what, end all be all. It's ending as soon as this turns on. It's just an assist to end the game faster so that we're not playing like a 90-minute game, like 75-minute game like used to happen in CTFDL. We're all getting older now. We all have families now. Like Kelby said earlier, we're doing this in our free time to have fun. I mean, nobody wants to be locked up for 2.5 hours to play a game, especially when you have responsibilities and stuff. So this kind of allows it to end a little bit sooner, gives it a little bit of assistance, and you can still have fun, and you're not just automatically losing after spending 45 minutes playing a game. So definitely a way better way to go, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah, and kudos to Axidus for making that change. You know, just between the seasons, he's been able to work on this. I think they've had 3 to 4 different live iterations tested on it. So it sounds like it's ready to go. The referee in charge of the game will issue the command, I believe, at the start of the game, which starts that background timer to initiate it at 30 minutes.
Yeah, he's done an amazing job, man. Honestly, he's making it so easy for everybody, especially the staff and the referees. It's like I know that they first they were like, okay, the heel cut just was medikit at first, wasn't really doing it. Maybe we should introduce it on the engine repair kit. It was literally the next morning. You logged in, it was there. You know, as soon as they asked them, boom, done. No stress, no worries. Shout out to Axie again, man. Huge help to this game. He does so much for this game that people don't even know. The amount of hours this guy puts in is more than anyone has played this game. So, you know, again, shout out to him, and hopefully we can keep him on. He doesn't quit, and, you know, through controversy, keeps doing his thing.
Yeah, you don't want to burn out your developers in what's truly a volunteer project. Just one more touch, because this all happened this week. Originally, the engineer portion was also 50% reduction. We played, I think, 1 or 2 mixes that got to see it, and that was pure torture for the engineers getting hit here. When you reduce that repair kit from 75 to 37, which is 37.5, rounded down for whatever reason, shout out Axidus again, it is impossible to keep up with the explosive damage once the team is set up. So I was luckily on the winning side of that, and I felt bad for my good pal Verb, as he's sitting there, you know, starts with full energy, he's healing his turrets at 37 per heal based on the healing per second you can deploy as an engineer with energy constraints and reloads. There's no way you're out healing an AC in 1 or 2 nades. So that did get reverted down to 33% to where it doesn't instantly end it. It just puts a little more pressure to push towards that end.
Yeah, and it puts more responsibility on the defense itself to rep and push out and move to heavy and all that. So it's I think it is better than, you know, straight 50%. you'd never be able to outdo it. You could have, you know, as much tox as Infinite come on in a 45-minute game. You're not stopping it, right? So
no.
So talking about more changes that we would like to see, not necessarily this season, but in future seasons. Kelby, talk about the boxes that we've been discussing behind the scenes.
Yeah, so we've been talking to some of the map editors, like Joe, and I've even mentioned to Axidus and the other prominent, you know, inf players, the fighting classes who spend their, you know, quote unquote gaming careers fighting around these boxes. These are the most pivotal points of fighting in a base. Can you set up at a box? Can you control a box? Can you deter the team away from the box? There's a lot of kind of box misinformation that goes around the community, and people don't have physics on, they can't see it. But we really want to get box revisioning implemented to where across these bases, it's at least fair across them. The easiest example is if you look at A5 in the game, check it out your next mix, the box structure of physics in A5 makes it so easy for the offense to hold. You know, we can negate the turrets, and I say we because I play offense more recently, just by standing behind them. There's nothing coming over the box. There's so many orange physics blocking those. Whereas at D6, you know, this RT is sneaking over because the physics are smaller there. So it's a similar flag room attacking strategy, but it's so much easier to deploy at A5. On the other hand, if we look at A7, A7 provides a certain amount of coverage for the high box in the stack, whereas that same or similar looking box at F4 has additional stopping orange points on it. So when an offense is trying to flush that box out, it's so much easier at A7 to roll grenades around it or get EB coming around it to flush that defensive inf out at A7 than it is at F4. I think that's something that should be looked at, kind of made at least standard across. And that doesn't mean every system needs its own boxes, but the boxes should make sense visually. Where if I'm attacking around the boxes, the physics match it perfectly. So I don't want one box deployed at this base and then copy and paste it to all the bases. That's not the goal. I just want to be fair for both offense and defense to understand when you're fighting around a box, it's operating the way you would expect it to. And I think right now that's not the case. Turn physics on, take a look at them. They're way too different across those 4 bases.
Yeah, they definitely are. And it happened to me last night. We were attacking A7, and like I play with question mark show vehicle on, so it has like a little circle around your guy's vehicle, and I was clearly behind the top box on my vehicle, and the RT smoked me. And I've only been back a couple weeks, and I was like, man, there's no way that RT should have smoked me. But Kelby was actually spectating me, put on show physics, and took a screenshot and showed it to me, and I'm like, yeah, okay, it's exactly what we talked about 2 nights ago with these boxes. Like, it definitely has to be changed.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that.
All right, so next up on changes that we'd like to see, I'm going to talk a little bit about A5. I know I'm the one responsible for putting A5 on the map. This A5 version is not the version that I put in there, so please do not come at me about what's in there right now. It has been changed at least once, because Joe sent me some screenshots from previous, and it's totally different. So talking on that, I think what the consensus is that we're going to move the flag room over to the right, if you could picture it, as well as moving the boxes that are there over to the right, which shortens up that big room, which also allows different things to happen. So for one, the medic kit heal range will now reach the infantries as they're trying to push the heavy out, which right now it does not. When infantries are fighting on the right side of those boxes, they cannot receive heals. Also, the turrets don't shoot at the enemy if they're on that right wall. It's just too far away. The MGs just won't pick it up. You'll get the RT to shoot over there, but the MGs are giving no assistance. So like the DMs are literally fighting without turrets, without heals, which makes that base, in my opinion, right now, it's not a real viable base. I know that for me personally, I would never pick that base unless I absolutely had to. If I was the away team, I only had 3 DMs, I didn't have a heavy, and the other captain picks Titan, well, you got no choice at that point. You have to take it. But I know personally, I would try to do absolutely everything I could not to take that base right now, just for those 2 simple facts. So I don't know how you feel about those changes, Kelby.
Yeah, I like the proposal, and it's funny because, again, I tout myself as an O infantry, so yeah, I love attacking that base. It's a great time because I'm protected and the turrets don't shoot me. But I do like to consider it fair that I think it should be condensed a little bit to where the turrets are at least active. Obviously, I talked about those boxes need to be corrected, so it's not a big brick wall shielding the whole offense. Give that defense a little more room and flexibility to take over that fight. Because typically, anytime I'm attacking that base, I'm very confident the whole time. Like, it's too hard to push out of that base because it's just a straight wrapping square/rectangle. There's not a flank angle like there is in D6. And for the offense, it's just so easy to hold the boxes. The easiest due to, like you said, the range. The DMs who come and fight us in the corners can't even get healed from the medic. Like, those changes have needed to be made since I've been playing again, and I think it's a step in the right direction.
All right, next up for changes, we got the D6 base. Personally, I know not everyone's going to agree with this. I know Kelby doesn't agree with this, but I would like to see the Axie D6 put into place where the left wall above the elevator is widened. What this does is that it provides more room for the SL where they're not TD'd. Currently, right now, the SL has to run completely out of the base to summon once the medic's up in the corner by the door, if you could vision that. Whereas if the wall was moved over a little bit like that base is, he can summon while in the base while the medic's in that corner. If you want to see this base, it's currently directly underneath the current D6 base that everybody plays in right now. Also in that base, there's a little window in the 2 doors when you get down by the boxes. I do not suggest keeping that in there. So just current D6, but with the wide wall on the left above the elevator. I think that this really helps out the weaker offenses so that, if they're, 2 or 3 infantries are dying at the same time and they're unable to hold chokes, the SL doesn't have to run right outside. They're not literally starting over from square one every run. But on the other hand, it really helps out stronger offenses, whereas they don't have to do that either. So there is a double edge to it, but I just think overall it will make SL a lot easier in that base. The base is really hard to attack as it is. It's the hardest base, in my opinion, to attack, so it kind of gives it a little bit of evening out there. Kelby, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with some of it, disagree with some, right? So, as far as is it the hardest space to attack? Traditionally, yeah. For most offenses right now, it is the hardest space to attack. The meta is setting up with heavies or 3-inf JT, which becomes a rush flag room offense. And there are a lot of outplay opportunity for the defense in the space. I talked a few minutes ago about the flank lane in D6. You know, you can wrap through either of those snake corridors to flank the offense if they get set up, to push the SL, yada, yada, yada. It's not so much that I hate the idea of widening the wall. I just think it's an underrated nerf to the defense. Whereas right now, what the defense has going for it, then maybe the most strong benefactor of all this is that medic can sit under the door as long as it's closed, probably, and TD the SL and force him away from safety. This takes that away. So a lot of these pushouts we've seen all these years where I'm TD'd, I got to go outside, they're about to push out the door. Those are probably going to go away. You know, we talk about death timers in this game. I always think it's an 11.5 to 12.5 second window, assuming biomarkers are set up. So people are dropping. If that medic's not able to apply TD from that side, and it's pretty safe for the SL, that whole side is safe for the SL, aside from the very bottom near the elevator, which would still be TD'd by traditional sentries in the flag room, it creates a lot of opportunity for offenses. And again, I'm an offensive player. I should love this. But I don't know. It could just be the nostalgia boomer in me. I've always thought D6 as a strong defensive base. I don't like the thought of nerfing its defensive capabilities, where it's a pure buff for the offense in this case. Like, there's no comp back for the defense. They're going to have more pressure on them in that base. And maybe it's the right thing to do. I've admitted being wrong before, but for me, I like D6 the way it is. I like attacking it. I like the struggle of it. I like the SL outplays and whatnot. And I think a lot of that changes if we kind of nerf it down a little with that extra wall.
As we're talking about it, I think if they fix A5, like if we can fix A5 to the point where it's like just as strong as or a good base to defend, whereas right now it is not a good base to defend. If we can get it to that point, I think leaving D6 the way it is and leaving A5 the way it's updated to be used could even out, because you get the manual flanks a lot easier at A5, right? So that kind of evens out the two things. So I think it's going to take a bit of testing, a bit of gameplay, get A5, you know, to a point where it's as strong as D6 or close to D6 to defend, and then maybe we don't change it. But I think it's something that it's definitely going to take a bit of time and gameplay and you know, testing to figure out. I know Joe is like super into the updates and the testing and stuff, so I would actually like to hear his take on it after we release this, just to see what he thinks. But yeah, I think if we can get him up to par, it probably wouldn't even be a thought in my mind at that point, because then Collective would have that D6, you know, base on their side.
Yeah, and I guess that's another point. You know, we talk about Collective getting an equivalent base. I never want to see it get to a point where it's essentially a mirror. And we talked about F4 as an inversion of A7. If you have these actual inverted bases or same base with different tile sets, you're losing the home field advantage. And I remember, you know, playing in PL, things are up for stakes. It's important to get the home field advantage. Most teams, if you're inf heavy, you want to take Titan. It's the best Titan base in the game. So yeah, we want it to be balanced, but not necessarily at 50-50. We want there to be advantages to A7 potentially over F4, D6 over A5. If it's just mirrored across, then home field means nothing except the tile you're defending under.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if we ever get back to like a season of, even if it's draft league, but you have a season and then seeding matters, like you want that to matter. That's what you're playing for. So I agree 100% with that one. So that's it for the changes. That's all we have for the changes for, you know, season 3 of CTFDL. Obviously, as we play season 2, there might be more stuff that comes up, and we'll probably talk about that if the podcast continues into that. But that's all we have for it on this episode. Right now, the last thing we have to get into is the schedule for Sunday coming. Week 1, CTFDL, Season 2. Kelby, take us through this matchup here.
Yeah, just a few quick takes. I won't try to take up too much time here. The first squad, you know, we've got Raccoons, Posty squad going against Leeties, Bond squad. This will be our first view of Posty's leadership take on the season. He was a captain last season but had Sov. This season he's going without Sov, so we'll see what that looks like. Bond's moving from being a member of Metal Squad last season, now captaining his own, plus adding Sov and keeping tactical like I talked about in the roster review. You know, I think this is going to be a good matchup, a different take on the game from both teams, and I'm not going to make any predictions on this, but I'm excited to see what happens. The next one, we have the Pizza Fellas of Mecca versus Sissors with Axie. Mecca, traditionally a skirmisher, he built his squad up with the help of Albert, a veteran CTFer with plenty of success behind him. Used his opinion to help build the roster, probably using his opinion to shape out, you know, lineup strategies, that kind of thing. Going off against Axie, who we talk about Axie a lot as a developer. Axie was one of the most improved players from the first draft league last season. I called him out on some things that some people would take controversially. He reached out to me and said, "Hey, appreciate the tip." Next week, he looked 3 times better than he did the first week. I'm a big fan of his. I think he's got leadership capabilities. Can he get these more veteran players he drafted to kind of fall in line with his leadership? On the other hand, does he kind of lean on some of them to help him with the leadership because he doesn't have this robust CTFDL experience like some of us have? That'll be a good matchup as well. Maybe some of the best fighting imps in the game are facing off against each other in that one. And then the last one of the week is Sissors with Axie again. So they come right off this game into Cuck, led by Head. This will be cool because Axie's team is the only one with kind of back-to-back this week where they're playing twice. Are they going to be fatigued from the first game? Will they play a long first game? Then maybe they run out of time. They have to make roster changes because people have to log off, or they're tired. They can't play anymore. Did they beat the pizza team? Are they coming off a high? Did they lose to the pizza team? They're all low. This plays into these back-to-back matches that Axie's team is the first one to be exposed to under the scheduling. So he's going to be facing off against, like I mentioned, the most notable JT if he plays his main class in the league. So I'm not expecting Mecha's team to deploy a JT. Again, it's all bold predictions, I'm sure. But I am expecting Head's team to have a JT, whether it's Chucky at JT, Head at JT, both at JT. I don't know. So it's a different style for that defensive axis to prepare for, whether it's Pizza the first squad or Cuck the second squad. And then last but not least, Head, he'll be leaning into RRU's leadership like we talked about. They played together in the first draft league, and he'll have a chance to showcase his own class flexibility if he even plays himself. He's got plenty of folks on the roster who could play. Maybe Head wants to lead from spec. I know he participated in the dojo in some capacity. I can't provide too much context because I wasn't part of it, but I know he participated. I know he can play a fighting imp class. He can play as a heavy. He can play as a JT. We saw it in the last draft league. So it'll be cool to see what does that squad look like. They're the one I mentioned, drafted differently. You put a lot of stock into Chucky with your first overall pick. That'll be our first exposure to it, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait. I know I'm going to be playing in one of these, but I'm honestly just as excited to watch the other teams play as well, because we all have this speculation, what this lineup's going to be, what that lineup's going to be, who they're going to have an O and who they're going to have a D. We're never really going to know until the captain puts those people in. And I think there's going to be a few oh my God, I've never seen this guy playing this class or something like that happening throughout the season, especially where it's a draft league. And like you said, people might have to go or whatnot, but I'm excited to see it. With that, guys, we've pretty well gone through, everything that we can for this season, the draft picks. Again, I want to bring up, if anybody wants to be on the podcast, if you're interested in it, you think you got some good stuff to bring up, please reach out to me on Discord. We'd love to know who wants to be on here. If we can fit you guys in, we will 100% get you on here. All right. So don't be afraid to reach out if you want to be on here. And with that, Kelby, I want to thank you for being on the podcast with me. I look forward to the future weeks and, the different guests we get on here and different topics we could bring up. Again, we're going to try to release some weekly, updates of previous matches and also get some guests in here for your guys' pleasure. And before we leave, again, Kelby, thank you for being on here. Really appreciate it. We got a little, we'll call it message from one of the BDS brothers, Herthbul. So again, guys, thanks for listening. Before you head out, enjoy the message and take care.
Just wanna hate, lovers wanna love. I don't even want none of the above. I wanna piss on you. Yes, I do. You know it's true. I'll be on you. Drip, drip, drip.